Welcome to the Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to be your guide today as we navigate one of the most vital, yet surprisingly intuitive, pieces of international maritime law. Have you ever looked out at a bustling harbor or a major strait and just wondered, how on earth does it all work without constant chaos? Well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're demystifying Rule 10 of the Navigation Rules. We're going to take this dense legal text and reframe it into something we all intuitively get, an oceanic highway system.
Seriously, how do these giant ships avoid crashing in the world of busiest waters? Just imagine, you're out there on the open water. There are no painted white lines, no traffic lights, absolutely zero physical barriers. Yet you've got massive oil tankers, nimble sailboats, busy fishing trawlers, and super-fast cargo ships, all sharing the exact same seemingly infinite space. Without a solid system in place, it would be literal bedlam out there. And that's exactly why Rule 10 matters, not just to those massive ship captains, but to absolutely everyone on the water.
So to solve this massive logistical headache, maritime authorities created what's called the Traffic Separation Scheme, or TSS. Basically, these are invisible routing measures that separate opposing streams of marine traffic to prevent collisions. I want you to lock in a mental visualization right now, okay? Think of a TSS exactly like a massive, multi-lane interstate highway on land. The only difference, it's laid out over the water using GPS coordinates and buoys instead of asphalt and concrete.
Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the highways of the sea. Second, entering and exiting safely. Third, the art of crossing. Fourth, medians and local zones. And finally, number 5, anchoring and smaller vessels. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. Highways of the Sea. Proceeding in the lane.
Whenever a massive container ship enters a traffic separation scheme, I promise you, they aren't just winging it. They are entering a highly regulated flow of traffic. The core rule dictates that a vessel using a TSS must proceed in the appropriate traffic lane in the general direction of traffic flow for that lane. Sounds incredibly simple, doesn't it? Just like driving on a highway, you gotta go with the flow. I mean, you wouldn't drive south in the northbound lane of an interstate, right? Well, you absolutely cannot do it in a marine traffic lane either.
Moving on to Section 2, Entering and Exiting Safely, the Rules of Merging.
You see, transitioning from the open ocean into a designated traffic lane requires some pretty strict procedure. You can't just swerve onto a highway from a ditch. Getting on and off these maritime highways is heavily regulated. So the crucial point here is captured in 2 steps. Step 1, normally, you should join or leave a traffic lane at the termination of the lane. Think of this as the very beginning or the absolute end of the highway. But step 2 is where it really gets interesting. If you absolutely must join or leave from the side of the lane, you have to do so at as small an angle to the general direction of traffic flow as practicable. Imagine the vector of a ship merging. You want to slide in almost parallel to the traffic, matching the flow, rather than just plunging in at a steep, disruptive angle. And because of all this constant merging, Rule 10 includes a very specific warning. You must navigate in areas near the terminations with particular caution. Now, why is that? Well, because the terminations of a traffic separation scheme are essentially the highway on-ramps and off-ramps just mashed together. You've got vessels speeding up to join, vessels slowing down to leave, and routes converging from all sorts of different directions. It is highly, highly congested in these spots, and extreme alertness is absolutely mandatory.
All right, Section 3, the art of crossing, navigating intersections.
So, what happens when your destination is on the exact opposite side of the scheme? On land, we just build overpasses or stoplights. But out on the ocean, vessels simply have to drive directly across the active lanes of moving giants. Because of this terrifying reality, the primary instruction from Rule 10 is stark. Avoid crossing traffic lanes if at all possible. Literally, the best way to survive crossing a maritime highway is to just not do it. Plan your voyage around the traffic separation scheme. But, maritime authorities are realistic, and they knew that sometimes crossing is absolutely unavoidable.
And this brilliantly illustrates the strict exception to that rule. If you are obliged to cross, you must do so on a heading as nearly as practicable at right angles to the general direction of traffic flow. Yes, exactly 90 degrees. Why? There are 2 brilliant reasons for this. First, a right angle is simply the shortest geometric distance across the lane. That minimizes the time your vessel spends in the danger zone. And second, the 90-degree angle clearly telegraphs your intentions. Any captain looking at their radar is going to instantly see your sharp, perpendicular track and know exactly what you're doing. It's totally unambiguous.
Now for Section 4, medians and local zones, the spaces between.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because a highway isn't just the driving lanes, right? It's the whole structure around them that keeps everyone safe. We have two key areas to contrast here to really get the whole system. First up is the separation zone. You can think of this as the median between opposing lanes. Big ships must stay completely out of it except for absolute emergencies to avoid immediate danger, or, and this is kind of interesting, to engage in fishing. Then, on the outside of the lanes, closer to land, we have the Inshore Traffic Zone. Think of this one as your local frontage road. Rule 10 specifically states that vessels under 20 meters in length, sailing vessels, and fishing vessels can use this local road. This is huge because it keeps smaller, much more vulnerable local traffic out of the way of the massive, fast-moving vessels that are locked into that main highway.
And our final stop, Section 5. Anchoring in smaller vessels, exceptions and pedestrians.
So we firmly established how the big ships move, but now we need to address the stationary hazards and how the relative pedestrians of the ocean interact with these giants. First up, anchoring. The rule says you must, as far as practicable, avoid anchoring in a traffic separation scheme or near its terminations. Returning to our trusty metaphor for a second, you wouldn't just throw your car in park in the middle lane of the interstate to take a quick nap, would you? Of course not. Anchoring in a TSS is an immense danger to everyone, and it is essentially forbidden unless some extreme, completely unmitigatable circumstances force your hand.
Next, we've got to look at who yields to whom. Rule 10 groups three specific types of vessels together: vessels less than 20 meters in length, sailing vessels, and vessels engaged in fishing. The rule explicitly lays out that these three categories shall not impede the safe passage of a power-driven vessel following a traffic lane. So, practically speaking, if you are small, if you're relying on the wind, or if you're out there dragging fishing nets, you have an active instruction to stay out of the way of the massive cargo ships. Those giants require literally miles to turn or stop, so you cannot get in their way.
Now, there is one major exemption here. Vessels restricted in their ability to maneuver, specifically because they are doing maintenance on the navigation scheme itself, or maybe laying or servicing a submarine cable, are exempt from complying with Rule 10. But, and this is a big but, it's only to the extent necessary to carry out their operation. Think of them just like highway construction and utility crews. They get special permission to be in restricted areas so they can keep the infrastructure working for the rest of us.
Before we wrap this up, I really want to draw your attention to this powerful quote from the very beginning of Rule 10. This rule does not relieve any vessel of her obligation under any other rule. This is absolutely critical to understand. Following the lanes in a traffic separation scheme is not a free pass. Just because you are cruising in the correct lane does not mean you can ignore a crossing situation, or ignore safe speed limits, or stop keeping a proper lookout. Yes, you must follow the oceanic highway system, but you still have to drive your ship safely according to all the other rules of the road.
So let me leave you with this final real-world challenge. Imagine you are captaining a 15-meter sailboat today. You absolutely have to cross a bustling traffic separation scheme to get to your destination port. Based on the rules of the oceanic highway you literally just learned, how exactly would you safely approach that busy crossing? Think about the angles. Think about your vessel size. Keep that knowledge sharp, and I'll see you in the next explainer.